My name is Rachel, and this is the 7th video in my Korean speaking series, and it's also part 3 of 3 in my videos for how to conjugate verbs into the present tense. Now, it might seem like there's no reason that this should have been broken up into 3 videos. Almost all videos out there will teach all 3 verb types in one video, and I think that's great. Just keep it simple. But something that I've been really trying to cultivate on this channel is just how much practice matters. So my goal for you is to just be able to give you a really solid understanding of the basics so that you have a really good foundation of the basic grammar. So it might seem like we're going through this really slow right now, but if you have that solid foundation, then once we get into the higher level grammar, you'll be able to just fly through those. So let's get started with today's video. Today we're going to be going over the final verb type, the all verbs, and then we're also going to be practicing the object particle, something that will be able to make our sentences a bit more complex. If you find this video a bit confusing as we get going, then you might want to check out the previous 2 videos because this is a continuation of all 3. As always, please take all the time that you need to answer each question, so don't hesitate to pause as much as you need. And if you're already familiar with the grammar, then you can also go ahead and skip ahead to the practice round right here. And let's go ahead and get started. Welcome to the final verbs. But just a quick review of what we have done in the past few videos. The first type of verb that we went over were the 하다 verbs, in which you will drop 다 and then change 하 into 해. Or you can go with the old-fashioned version of 해, which is 하여. So for to study, 공부하다, drop 다, and change 하 into 해, 공부해. Then in the last video, we went over verbs in which the final vowel is either a or o. And for these, we will drop 다 and then add a. So for 알다, to know, drop 다, add a, 알아. For 보다, to see, drop 다, add a. 보아 is technically correct, but for ease of pronunciation, it tends to combine into 와. And then we have 가다, drop 다, and if you were to add a, this a vowel in a row like this is rather redundant. It tends to just merge together into the one vowel, so we just have ka. If you were talking to your friends or to children, then this here is the casual form, but if you're speaking to anyone else, then you will most likely use the polite form, which you will make by simply adding 요. And finally, today we are going to go over the final type of verb, which is basically everything else. Now, in the last video, I gave you this list of verbs right here. This is each verb's dictionary form, but you cannot use it like this in a sentence. So that's what we're going to go over today. And last time we went over these verbs in which their final vowel for ta is either a or o. And as I just said, in order to conjugate these verbs into the present tense, you will simply drop ta and add a. But in the case of these 2 right here, these vowel sounds tend to merge together into wa and ka. And finally, you will make everything polite by adding yo. But what about the rest of the verbs? That's what we're going to go over today. Now for all verbs, the first thing that you will always do is drop ta. And if the final vowel is either a or o, then as I just said, you will add a. But for everything else, you will add o. So let's go ahead and do that right here. And then let's bring these guys over into our list over here. So once again, if the final vowel before ta is not a or o, then you will drop ta and add o. But if you watched the last video, then you probably noticed that there's actually a lot of merging rules that happens with a lot of the vowels. In the case of these 2 right here, these 2 words have a 받침. A 받침 is the word for a bottom consonant. Because of that, it's impossible to merge any vowel sounds, so these guys are okay as they are, just like this. And as for 뚜요, this uyo sound is kind of hard to merge any further than it already is, so 뚜요 is considered finished as well. As for these 2 right here, they merge together kind of similarly to the last video, which we had 보다 and 오다. In 보다 and 오다, you will drop 다 and add a. But then if you say these sounds really, really fast, many times, boa 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 boa, oa 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 oa, they tend to merge together just to make it easier to pronounce. So similarly to these 2, these vowel sounds also tend to merge together as well when you say them really fast. This uo 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 sound tends to merge together into wo. So starting with 도와주어, 주어 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 주어. 도와주어 tends to become 도와줘. And as for this uo sound, uo 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 uo, 배우어 tends to become 배워. And now we can mark both of these as finished. All right, and finally, let's take a look at these two right here. And we'll look at this vowel sound, eo. If you say eo many times very, very fast, eo, 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 it tends to merge together into yo. So, 마시어, 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 마시어. That was so hard to do. And 가르치요, 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 가르치요. These vowel sounds also tend to merge together like this, and now we can consider them as done as well. And for the 4th or 10th or 100th time, in order to make all of these polite, we will then add yo. So back to our list right here, we merged some of the vowel sounds, and then we made everything polite by adding yo. But now it's time to go over the 뜻, aka the meaning. Starting with 먹다. 먹다 came from 먹어요, and it means to eat. 마시다 came from 마셔요, and it means to drink. 뛰어요 came from 뛰다, which means to run or to jump. 도와줘요 comes from 도와주다, which means to help. 씻어요 comes from 씻다, which means to wash. 가르쳐요 comes from 가르치다, which means to teach. And finally, 배워요 comes from 배우다, which means to learn. So let's go ahead and get into some 연습. This time, instead of making sentences right away, let's just go ahead and practice the conjugation rules that we just went over, and in polite form, starting with 씻다. So 씻다 becomes 씻어요. How about 먹다? 먹다 becomes 먹어요. 뛰다. 뛰다 becomes 뛰어요. 배우다. 배우다 becomes 배워요. This 워 being the merging of 우어. Next we have 도와주다. 도와주다 becomes 도와줘요. 줘 being the merging of 주어. 줘. 마시다. 마시다 becomes 마셔요. 셔 being the merging of 시어. 셔. 가르치다. 가르치다 becomes 가르쳐요. 쳐 being the merging of 치어. 쳐. Okay, and let's just go ahead and practice this one more time. 먹다. 먹어요. 가르치다. 가르쳐요. 도와주다. 도와줘요. 배우다. 배워요. 씻다. 씻어요. 뛰다. 뛰어요. 마시다. 마셔요. Now we know that 마셔요 can mean I drink, you drink, we drink, he drinks, she drinks, they drink, or even it drinks. So let's go ahead and specify I drink. What should we put before 마셔요? 저는. 저 being I, and 는 being the topic particle. If you're not familiar with this, then you might want to go ahead and watch lesson 2. So I drink becomes 저는 마셔요. And while it's not necessary to add 저는 to every single sentence that you say, if it's not clear who you're talking about, then we can just go ahead and add 저는 just to make it more clear. And so that's how we'll practice it today. Okay, how about I run? 저는 뛰어요. I teach. 저는 가르쳐요. Okay, and finally something that I've been very excited to teach for a while now. It's time to move on to the object particle. But what do I mean by object? Let's start by looking at the difference between the topic and the object. In a sentence like, I eat pizza, I is the topic of a sentence, or you could also say that it is the subject of the sentence too. We'll leave that for a future video. Now the topic, you could just think of as who or what is doing the verb. So who or what is eating? I am. So I is the topic of the sentence. As for the object is who or what is being acted upon by the subject doing the verb. So the subject is doing the verb to what? That makes absolutely no sense with no context, I know, but in this particular sentence, I eat pizza, you could just think of it as I am eating what? I am eating pizza. Pizza is the thing being eaten. Pizza is the thing being acted upon. So pizza is the object of the sentence. So let's play a game called Find the Object. I drink water. What do you think is the object? Water. Water is the thing that I drink. I met up with my friend. Friend. Friend is the thing that I met up with. I watched a movie yesterday. What did I watch yesterday? A movie. She's going to buy some snacks later. What is she going to buy later? Some snacks. So back to the topic versus object, I eat pizza. I is the topic, which is marked in Korean by either 는 or 은. 는 if the word ends with a vowel, and 은 if the word ends with a consonant. Because the word for I in Korean is 저, then we know that we add 는, 저는. Now in order to add an object to our sentence, then we need to know the object particle, which in Korean is, if a word ends with a vowel, then you will add 를, and if a word ends with a consonant, then you will add 을. If you are an English speaker, these might be really hard to pronounce at first. Just push through it and I promise you, you will get it eventually. I literally thought myself, maybe I just don't have to ever use the object particle. But nope, it will be in the majority of sentences you say. So just push through it and I promise you that you'll eventually be able to pronounce it well if you can't right now. So the object particle, 를 and 을. The word for pizza in Korean is 피자. And because 피자 ends with a vowel, then we will add 를, 피자를. So let's add this to our sentence. 저는 피자를. And last we need eat. Eat we just learned earlier in this lesson, which is 먹다. Now we can't just add it to our sentence like this. We have to conjugate it into the present tense, so we will drop 다 and add 어. And then for the 400th time, we will make it polite by adding 요. And just a reminder that the verb will always come at the end of a sentence. So I eat pizza is 저는 피자를 먹어요. Alright, so let's go ahead and get into some 연습, making sentences with objects. Here are 4 verbs that we just learned, and here are 4 nouns. Pizza we just learned is pizza. 물, perhaps you remember or already know. Water. 손 is a word I have not taught yet, and it means hand. And 한국어, even if you don't know this word, you can probably figure it out by remembering that 한국 means Korea. 한국 사람 is Korean person. So 한국어 is Korean, the language. Korean. And because the verb will always come at the end, then these have to switch. And let's go ahead and add our topic here, 저는, plus the object particle after our objects, 를 or 을. And for the 2000th time, we'll make polite by adding 요. Although if you want to practice this in casual form, then instead of 저는, you will use 나는, and 요, we can just get out of here. But I will of course be practicing in polite form. So let's go ahead and start with I drink water. 저는 물을 마셔요. 저는 물을 마셔요. I learn Korean. 저는 한국어를 배워요. I wash my hands. Now in Korean, there is a way to specify my, and there is a way to pluralize hands, but in a sentence like this in which you're most likely not washing someone else's single hand, it's not quite necessary to specify my or pluralize, so this sentence is more naturally said as I wash hand. So what do you think? 저는 손을 씻어요. 저는 손을 씻어요. And do you remember? I eat pizza. 저는 피자를 먹어요. Alright, now let's go ahead and get a few new nouns and verbs in here. 영화. 영화 is movie. 책. 책, you might remember, is book. 한국어 we just did, which is Korean, but 영어 might be new to you as English. And note that languages will usually end with 어. As for the verbs, let's go ahead and do 가르치다, which we just learned today is to teach. And from our previous lessons, 공부하다, to study, 보다, to watch, and 찾다, to look for or to find. 가르치다 we just went over today, and its final vowel is not a or o, and it's not a 하다 verb, so after dropping 다, we will add 어. 보다 and 찾다 are from the previous videos, and their final vowel before 다 is o and a, so after dropping 다, we will add a. And 공부하다 is from the first in this three-part series, and it is a 하다 verb, so after dropping 다, we will change 하 into 해. And for the 4 millionth time, we will make polite by adding 요. Okay, I study Korean. 저는 한국어를 공부해요. 저는 한국어를 공부해요. I teach English. 저는 영어를 가르쳐요. 저는 영어를 가르쳐요. I look for a book. 저는 책을 찾아요. I watch a movie. 저는 영화를 봐요. And just a reminder that 화 is the merging of 보아, 화. So in summary, if the last vowel before 타 is not o or a, and it doesn't end with 하다, then you will drop 타, add 어, and merge if necessary. In the case of 먹다, drop 타, add 어, and it's impossible to merge this any further, so we can count this as done. But in the cases of 마시다 or 배우다, drop 타, add 어, and merge the vowel sounds. And if you are talking to anyone besides children or your friends or someone who you have agreed to speak casually with, then you will generally always make polite by adding, for the 10 billionth time, 요. And the object particle review. If a word ends with a vowel, then you will add 를. And if a word ends with a consonant, then you will add 을. So finally, let's move on to the practice party. As I've said in all the previous videos, please pause as often as you need. I'm going to go faster in this section, but that's not because I expect you to go faster. It's just for the sake of anyone who perhaps already knows this grammar or is returning to it in the future as their level is just a little bit higher, and I just don't want anyone to feel extremely bored as they're going through this section. In this particular practice party, we are going to start with all verbs as we just learned today, as well as the object particle. And then after that, we are going to mix all three verb types, a, o, and he, and then we're going to combine them with things that we have previously learned with 에서, the location particle, and 에, representing towards, like a direction or time. If you are an absolute beginner to Korean and this is the only video of mine that you have ever watched, then you'll probably want to stop after these two right here. But if you've been keeping up with the lessons, then we've got a challenge for you today. So let's go ahead and get started. First, let's go ahead and review the conjugation rules that we just learned in this video. Starting with 씻다. 씻다 is the dictionary form, but in present tense it is 씻어요. 먹다. 먹어요. 뛰다. 뛰어요. 가르치다. 가르쳐요. 마시다. 마셔요. 배우다. 배워요. 도와주다. 도와줘요. And now for some easy sentences. I run. 저는 뛰어요. I learn. 저는 배워요. I eat. 저는 먹어요. I drink. 저는 마셔요. I help. 저는 도와줘요. I wash. 저는 씻어요. And now let's close the door on those verbs. Can you remember? I eat. 저는 먹어요. And now let's make our sentences a little bit more interesting by adding in the object particle. I eat pizza. 저는 피자를 먹어요. I drink. 저는 마셔요. I drink water. 저는 물을 마셔요. I learn. 저는 배워요. I learn Korean. 저는 한국어를 배워요. I wash. 저는 씻어요. I wash my hands. 저는 손을 씻어요. And let's open the door back up on those verbs, but this time we are going to practice all verb types. So if the verb ends with 하다, then you will drop 다 and change 하 into 해. If the last vowel is o or a, then you will drop 다 and add a. And if the last vowel is not o or a, then you will drop 다 and add o. And for the 500 trillionth time, you will make polite by adding yo. Okay, we've got 10 verbs that are from both today and previous lessons, and we're just going to go through these really quickly, just putting them into the present tense. Starting with 연습하다. 연습해요. 찾다. 찾아요. 먹다. 먹어요. 마시다. 마셔요. 보다. 봐요. 오다. 와요. 수영하다. 수영해요. 세탁하다. 세탁해요. 배우다. 배워요. 가다. 가요. And just in case you don't have the translation for these verbs, here they are right here. And finally, if you're not sick of this video yet, we've got a final challenge for you using the particles eso, which is the location particle as in at the beach or in the kitchen, e to represent time as in on Saturday or in the morning, and e to represent direction as in the word to, like to the beach. So let's get started with I go to school. 저는 학교에 가요. I swim in the morning. 저는 아침에 수영해요. I study in the evening. 저는 저녁에 공부해요. I teach at a school. 저는 학교에서 가르쳐요. I live in America. 저는 미국에서 살아요. I go to school in the morning. 저는 아침에 학교에 가요. Wow, that was a lot. Great job today, and I'll see you guys in the next video. La la la, this is me without that. This is me talking super duper duper loud. Who would have guessed? And who would have known?